Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Protech TR-3 side opening automatic knife. This is an awesome knife. I'm so happy to finally be showing this knife on the channel, as it is not a new item. It's been a very popular side opening automatic knife for a very long time, and it's kind of a blasphemy that I haven't talked about it yet. This was sent to me once again by Addicted to EDC on Instagram, so that's at Addicted to EDC, exactly like it sounds. I don't know where your card is, buddy. I'm so sorry. I just had it here a second ago. So give him a follow on Instagram. It's because of people like him that I'm able to bring you guys daily knife content. It's also because of my generous patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me right now. If you'd like to check out my Patreon and get your hands on some of these cool stickers and some other benefits, there is, of course, a link down in the description. Your support would absolutely mean the world to me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on the TR-3. Oh, by the way, I believe at the time of this video, there is at least one version of this knife available, so I will be providing a link down in the description where you can go check it out. And I'll also be linking Protech knives in general. I am a big fan of Protech knives. They make, in my opinion, the best side-opening automatic knives in the world, so check them out. Overall length of this guy coming in at 8 inches on the dots, blade length coming in at 3.5 inches, and cutting edge coming in at 3.4 inches. Those are just wonderful measurements. Now, obviously, this is an automatic knife, so it's not going to be legal for everybody, and it's also going to be double illegal if you live in a place where you can't carry a blade over 3 inches, or you have some restriction on blade length. So make sure and use your best judgment before you pick one of these up. It might be illegal in your area. But for people who can carry it, this is a wonderful overall size. It's right there in the spot. You know, this is the exact size of knife that I like to carry for myself, and it also has a very aesthetic appeal, or a very appealing aesthetic to it, at least for me. So there's a lot of really, really good stuff here, and we're going to talk all about it. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. So up against the Ontario Rat Model 1, the Rat 1's coming in at 8.6 inches overall. You can see there's a little smaller than the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 8.3 inches overall, so again, they're just a little bit longer. How about up against the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in almost exactly the same length. In fact, yeah, exactly the same length at 8 inches overall. And you can see there, very similar handle length and similar blade length and cutting edge. So this is an excellent size comparison. Part of the reason why I like the size so much. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7.25 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? This is an automatic knife running on phosphor bronze, and anybody who has handled a Protech before knows exactly what this feels like. They fire hard, and that feels good. It is not a sloppy, it's not just a spring and some washers in there just throwing the blade out and whatever. No, I mean, the tolerances on this thing are great. So when you push that button, it is recessed, right? There's no safety on this, but I think you're pretty good considering how this is going to carry in your pocket, right? This is a right-handed carry knife, which means the blade, if you're carrying it properly, is going to be up against the back seam of your pants. The button is recessed, so it's not likely the flat surface of your leg is going to accidentally push that button. And even if it does, well, the blade's going to open up against the seam of your pants. It's probably, and the blade's going to be pointing up. You're going to be aware if that thing accidentally deploys in your pocket. I regularly carry automatic knives because I can here in Kansas, and I have never had a knife like this deploy in my pocket. Does that mean it's impossible? No, but the way that they've got it set up is, in my opinion, safe considering what type of knife that it is. Once it is locked up, it is solid. This knife feels great. I always expect a little tiny bit of blade play, and I mean up and down with this sort of plunge lock on an automatic knife, or any plunge lock, right? But Protech, for the most part, I generally don't feel blade play. And if I do, a little adjustment of the pivot, and I mean a microscopic adjustment of the pivot, will knock that out. These things fire hard and they fire reliably, and it is solid. It's smooth, it's not clunky. This feels nice. If you have never deployed a Protech knife, that feels good. I say that on every single Protech video I've done. I've had plenty of examples, and so far, my mind has not been changed. These are the best feeling side opening automatic knives in existence. Really, really great stuff. How about carry profile? Let's go ahead and put that blade away here real quick and do thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see there it's slightly thicker, not anything crazy. In terms of height, up against the Spyderco Para-3 and PM2, two knives that have unquestionably awkward carry profiles that nobody ever seems to complain about. You can see there it is about the same length, a little tiny bit longer than the Para-3, nowhere near as long as the PM2. And in terms of height, it's an absolute winner. There's nothing sticking out anywhere. It is only the excess thickness that might ever so slightly bother you or some people, you know, in the pocket. Let's talk about blade thickness. There's my calipers. And weight. So blade thickness on this guy coming in at pretty typical 120. It says 122,000. So we're in Benchmade Griptilian territory there. There's not a lot of excess material here. It's a pretty normal sized knife, right? We're looking at 6061 T6 aluminum and not a super thick stock of steel. It's not an ultra lightweight knife, but I don't consider it heavy either, coming in at a totally reasonable 3.56 ounces. That's pretty much right on the money for the whole ounce and inch thing. So yeah, that's going to make a lot of people happy. It's not the thinnest object in the world, but considering all of its dimensions, I think it's a pretty carryable size. Really preferable carry size for an automatic knife or just a knife in general. So if you wear skinny jeans or athletic shorts on a daily basis and you're used to carrying knives like the Para-3 and bug out, this might not be for you. For most people though, it's going to be totally fine. I think you're going to be really happy with the carry profile of this knife. So let's go ahead. Did we go over everything? We can't do the hardware check, or I can't because my bits, I'll still show you. The handy dandy WIA bit selector and WIA magnetic driver, two items that are very inexpensive and very recommendable that you can find out on my Amazon store that I reference at the beginning of every video. Just pull open the store and check out the section that says knife maintenance. Wow, you sound like a car salesman, Metal Complex. I used to be. But yeah, these are hex. I've got some hex over there, but I'm not going to mess around with it. You can easily get into this knife if you want to. I don't think Protech likes it when you get into the knives, but you know, if you need to do some regular maintenance and get in there, don't try to mod it. Be careful. Don't mess anything up, because if you send it back in pieces and you're like, I can't get it back together and it's all messed up now, understandably, they're probably going to make you pay for it, right? So use caution. Make sure you understand their warranty. If you have a question about your knife or there's something wrong with it, contact Protech first and see what the best route is. That's what you should do, right? But yeah, if you really want to or you need to, right? If you're a soldier or if you're lost in the woods and all you have is your knife and your tools, then yeah, you can get into it with the being lost in the woods with just your tools and your knife is the funny part of that. But seriously, if you're a soldier and you have tools and you have no choice, you just need to take it apart and clean it and put it back together, then yeah, you can get into this very conveniently. So absolutely. Fit and finish, as per usual with Protech, is just absolutely excellent. There are no gaps. There's no weirdness here. The lines both look nice. They look appropriately tactical, I guess, if that's a thing. And they offer some traction alongside the obvious lines that are meant to hold your hand in place. And you do lock into this knife nicely. There is jimping up here. It is not aggressive, and it is in exactly the right place, so it complements the area for your index finger. In a reverse grip position, again, it is extremely comfortable. The jimping is doing the right job in the right place. I've got no issues with that. Ergonomically, this is a wonderful knife. You are absolutely locked in. It's not going to fall out of your hands easily, right? Even with the slick hard coat, I think it's a Type 3 hard coat anodizing they've got on here. That anodizing will, over time, deteriorate, but it's very durable. I always reference the video of the Protech Rock Eye that my buddy uses. It was mine, and then I sold it to my buddy who works still in the service department of the dealership I used to work at, and he does not baby that thing. He beats it into the ground, and that aluminum and that coating the coating's wearing away, but it is holding up nicely considering how old that knife is. It still fires, it still locks out hard. I've got it back here every now and then for sharpening, and I'm just infinitely impressed with it. That knife is a huge part of the reason why I am such a big fan of Protech. They are unquestionably durable and meant to stand the test of time. I understand there's a spring in there and springs wear out, but that Rock Eye fires hard. And the last time you saw it on the channel, that's not the last time you guys are going to see it. I'm going to continuously use it as an example and a reference point for the quality and the dependability of Protech knives. Absolutely. But anyways, yeah, fit and finish is just excellent. Now this one seems to have, I don't know if it's like a pearl button there. I've got my own personal Protech that is an SNG, has a pearl inlay there. And by the way, this thing still fires just as hard. And this is a user. Yes, it is a user. But yeah, that looks nice. They don't all come that way, I don't think. In fact, the TR-3 actually comes in a bajillion different forms, and they do short runs of everything. So if you don't like how this looks, I know they've done two-tone blades, they've done DLC blades, they've got ones with the skull inlaid in there. I've seen the TR-3s with the partially red blade. They did a rose gold version. There's so many different ones. Protech does that, and I think that's neat, right? The model itself is not a limited run model, but they do different variations of it, which I think that's cool, because then you get to own, people have the continuous opportunity to experience the model, but they come out with unique variants. And so the people who kind of like the pride of ownership thing or like to collect different variations, then that's there. I think that's the right way to do that. It is very different than people, manufacturers and makers going, I'm going to make 400 of this model and never make it again. That is a different issue. When people complain about the limited run thing, that's what they're talking about before you jump on that bandwagon. That kind of sucks. Although I definitely have purchased knives as part of a limited run, because I enjoy the feeling of exclusivity with that. But my feelings on that aside, that's what people are actually upset about, not that particular variants of a continuous model are limited. So just to clarify there. Fit and finish all the way around is just excellent. This seam back here is pretty typical for Protech to do a seam instead of a backspacer. It meets up nicely. These have very standard, very normal pocket clips. As far as pocket clips go, it's generally a 3-hole pocket clip. The way that they do it is perfect. There's not much of a bill. It's got kind of a swoop, right? Plenty of retention. It's going to slip over your pants really easily, come in and out of the pocket just fine. Doesn't carry super deep, but definitely not shallow either. And the pocket clip is prioritized over the lanyard hole, which is exactly how it should be. Right? Hardware is minimal. There's 3 screws, and it looks like they go into the aluminum here. There is a little, it looks like actually there is a little standoff right there. What I guess is 2 pieces of the aluminum meeting together. Big stop pin, as is, it should be. Very large stop pin. There's no shouldering, but lots of surface contact still because of the size of that stop pin. And that's, the reason is because the blade comes flying out of there, right? The stop pin needs to be plenty durable and large. So that's oftentimes why you see an oversized stop pin on a knife like this. Protech knives are awesome in the case that the spring is powerful enough to throw the blade no matter how close it already is to the back, right? That's the sign, in my opinion, of a good quality automatic knife, is no matter where the blade is when you release it, it goes ahead and throws itself. And the reason that that's important is because the idea of an automatic knife is to be able to push that button and deploy the blade conveniently and dependably, no matter what the situation. I'm, of course, speaking, for the most part, in terms of utility, right? I always use the example, if I'm up on a ladder and I've got one hand busy, it's nice to be able to pull a knife out of my pocket if I need to make a cut before I can move, lest I risk my balance, right? It's nice to be able to pull the knife and just push a button and it deploys, right? Now, the downside is that putting this knife away with one hand is a little bit more dangerous. You really have to put conscious effort into making sure that you keep your finger on that blade, because if you let go of it, and might, throw it out of your hand, you might cut yourself, you might drop it down a well or off the side of a boat or, into the Marianas Trench. I don't know where you are, but there's extra effort there, right? In a manual knife, you can open it and then you can close it usually a little bit easier with one hand without having to worry about putting pressure on the back of that spine. As is the case with all things, you will probably adapt to it if you carry it long enough. It's not that big of a deal. That's the nature of an automatic knife. There's probably going to be an adaptation process if you aren't used to it and you're coming from a manual knife. So just be aware of that. The blade is an awesome spear point or drop point blade, or whatever you want to call that. Flat runs out about 65% the length of the blade. There's a beautiful swedge up here. No sharp edges anywhere except for the edge of the knife, which is plenty sharp and comes down to, honestly, a pretty darn thin edge. It looks like it wouldn't because it doesn't have a lot of room to drop, but this is pretty thin. This is a pretty performance-oriented blade, and I like that. It is, however, kind of needle-like out here at the tip. This is 154 cm, and for anybody who doesn't know or has a problem with that, 154 cm, and as I recently found out, CPM 154 actually have a pretty marginal difference between them. Certain steels actually and it was actually Protech who explained this to me, because I asked them directly. I was like, why do you have 154 cm on some and CPM 154 on others? And they said, truthfully, it's because 154 cm just doesn't benefit that much from the powder process. Steels like D2 that rely heavily on carbide formation for their edge retention benefit massively from the CPM process, which is why I always say CPM D2 and D2 are wildly different monsters. But in the case of 154CM, it doesn't rely as heavily on carbide formation, and the grain structure is already plenty fine, and it's a good structure in terms of edge retention in general. So 154CM is super well-rounded. Excellent edge retention, well, pretty good edge retention. Pretty good toughness, pretty good corrosion resistance. It is stainless steel, and it is easy to sharpen. This is why I say 154CM/CPM 154 are my favorite user steels of all time. I have lots of experience with this steel, and I love it. So, do I care that it's not CPM? No, I don't care. Because the CPM process in the case of 154 does not make it literally the difference in, I mean, as long as it's all heat treated properly, which I'm sure, as far as I know, Protech does a great job with their heat treatment. The only difference is you gain maybe a 5% benefit in toughness, were the words of the rep from Protech that I talked to. So there you go. I don't really care anymore. But yeah, I think that's a totally appropriate choice. 154CM is appropriate on, knives that are around $100, and it's totally fine on knives that are $500. It's fine with me. It's an excellent user steel. Satin finish looks nice. I would always prefer a tumbled blade. You guys have heard me talk about this before. Usually my issue with a satin finish is that it doesn't knock down the corners, makes them a little bit rough, or it's uncomfortable in the hand if or to the touch. Not that big of a deal during use, but I still like it to be knocked down. In this case, it's knocked down anyway. I still would like a tumbled blade. That would be my preference, but some people really, really like satin blades. And if you like satin blades, Protech does an excellent job, as you can see. The symmetry on the blade is also really good. The cutting edge is the same all the way down on both sides, so I don't have an issue with that. It says Protech USA on one side, which, if you didn't know, Protech knives are made in the USA, and then it says 154CM on the other side. That's perfect. Doesn't need to say anything else. That's perfect. There's not a big paragraph on there. It doesn't, it just has who made it and what the blade steel is. That's it, right? Very performance-oriented blade shape. There's not a forward choil up here. There's kind of an area that suggests you might be able to put your, and you kind of can. Coming back here, there's about 3/4 of an inch of space between where you're locking in and where the blade starts. Plenty of an area that you could call a sharpening choil, so sharpening in this guy is going to be great, but you are quite a ways away from the blade if you're going to lock in the standard position. You can choke up on it. It's not a super reliable area because it's not an actual choil. I don't really have that much of a problem with the area. I always like, I like it when companies turn that area into a choil, but, on the opposing side of that, you are going to sacrifice a little bit more cutting edge if you do that, because if this was a choil, I would want the start of the cutting edge to be something like up here, and you'd bring it back to something like 3.125, 3.2 inches versus 3.4. What that extra cutting edge would do for you, and what situations would call for exactly that much more cutting edge, I don't know. But I can understand. What I'm saying is I can understand why it's made this way. I don't have a problem with that. Already went over the pocket clip. The other side of the knife is beautiful. It's very simple. You just have the non-show side pivot. Centering on this guy is, yeah, it's on. And lockup, like I said, solid. Solid lockup. That's great. So, because this knife is not always available, and I tried to look into the standard version of this knife, and I think Blade HQ has an older listing for that. Whenever I look this knife up, the base version of this knife seems to come in somewhere around $170 to $180. Now, they go up substantially because Protech has an Ultimate Custom program, and they definitely do have custom versions of this that run way more money. As of right now, there's a version of this on Blade HQ, I think that's around $190, and it's fairly standard. I think it's got a couple of upgrades. And I mean right now, like the time of this video. Check the date on the video. If you're watching it 2 years in the future, then this information isn't nearly as relevant. And then there's some custom or some dressed up versions that run like 500, 900. I think there's maybe one over 1,000. You can go look if you want to understand what I'm saying there. But I think these knives regularly come in between 170 and 180. Is that an appropriate price for this knife? Yeah. There's very little to complain about here. This is just a straight... Seriously, I've said this in another video. The Protech TR-3 is one of the most straightforward, reliable, well-designed side-opening automatic knives that exists. And it's one of those designs that hasn't changed like forever. This isn't like the oldest design in the world, but it's been around for a long time. And yeah, this is just, it's like the quintessential side-opening EDC folding knife design. I really like this knife. And somebody who's looking for a long-term, dependable, just straightforward, utilitarian side-opening automatic knife that's made in the USA and it's got a good price tag on it, this. There is so little to complain about here. This is an amazing side opening automatic. If you don't like the aesthetic, there's not really much I can do for you. But if you're looking for my recommendation, yeah, when people ask me what's a good USA starter side opener, Protech TR-3. Absolutely. Check this knife out. This is going to go on my most recommended knives playlist. And at some point, I'll make an automatic knives playlist, and it'll go on that one too. Very, very cool. Thank you so much at Addicted to EDC for sending this guy along. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.